Okay, this evening I'm going to do an unboxing video. I don't really know why I'm doing an unboxing video. I know a lot of my followers actually like unboxing videos. I find them incredibly dull, so I tend to not watch unboxing videos. I tend to, unless I know what the object's going to be, what the thing inside is going to be, I won't bother with them. But this is an unboxing video tonight then, so we make a start. We could do the normal thing for those who follow radio, TV, phone and up, go around and look at the packaging. And looks like it's been nicely packed. This came from my Hermes, and they drop kicked it over the gates this afternoon at work. And it's let's see what condition it's in. The box is in good condition, so in all fairness it looks like it's been handled well for a change. So let's get this box open, have a look inside. It's got these epoxy foam little, they're almost like rice. These things actually, I don't know if you know, if you get these wet, they will actually just disintegrate into nothing. It's getting wet. It just goes to a load of like snot in the end. So if you want to get rid of these, just put them in a bowl of water. So it's just turned into a load of old sludge. So you can get rid of them quite well like that. I don't know what you're supposed to do with it after you've diluted them down. And don't put my hands, because it's disgusting stuff, and it all forms a sticky mess. So let's have a look inside. Oh, I've got a little letter from the Dear Simon, thank you very much for buying my piece of junk. Hope it's of no use to you at all. Love, Sender. Okay, good. That's nice. Let's open up and have a look, see what we've got. Some receipts in here for Tesco's. Interesting. Tesco's receipt. 400 toilet rolls, 2,000 tins of baked beans. Okay. I've got some more bills in here. What's going on? Let's put all this junk in here as well. Obviously the binmen haven't been correcting things to buy. Face masks, sanitizer, isopropyl. Okay. So basically he's looks like he's packed pretty well. Okay, a bit of polystyrene in here as well, just a good measure. And things all over the bloody floor now. Okay, so that's the main item. Double wrapped, which is nice, so this is very well packed. Can't knock the packing at all. Let's clear up some of this mess. Let me just clear some of this mess up. Bench. So yeah, I ordered this last week. I saw it on eBay for a pretty good price, so I thought, well, let's we do something to sort of tinker around with. You know what's important in these times, you don't slice your finger or do anything nasty where you've got to go into hospital, like cut your finger off or anything, because there's probably no beds for you anymore. And they're just announcing some slightly alarming things from old people's homes that you know, they won't treat people over 70 years old, and that's starting to get a bit panicky now, because you know that's my parents. You know, if it becomes that bad and the beds are so full, they're not going to start treating people who are that age. Well, they're going to die, aren't they? Okay, it's almost triple wrapped. That's the first layer. Careful I don't slice the Rexine off. Okay. This is a Roberts R500, and believe it or not, I've actually had 3 of these and none of them work. The first one I bought was a long time ago. It was really badly damaged, and in the end I decided it just wasn't worth spending any time working on it. It was so far gone that I just gave up with it. I then bought a really nice red one about a year and a half ago, and I did the first part of the video on it, and then, as a lot of you know, and you're all sniggering in the background, I lost my bloody temper with it one evening and it went hurtling out the door. Luckily it was only the chassis. I don't know what had gone wrong. I was in one of those days when I wasn't in the right mood. I shouldn't have started the thing. I shouldn't have been working on it. I wasn't in the right frame of mind to work on it. So I threw it out the bloody door, and somewhere in the workshop, buried somewhere, there's a lovely red one. I need to find, dig it out, and because I want to actually maybe take the spares from this one and put them in the red one. So for those who don't know, this is a long wave, medium wave and short wave radio, circa probably mid to late 60s, suffering from the normal problem with most of these radios did at the time, AF117s. Now this is nice. You know, he really has gone to some extent to protect this radio, so I must admit I'm quite impressed with the packing. This chap is actually an audio dealer, and he obviously knows, you know, how to look after stuff and how to wrap it, and that's good. I'm pleased with that. Let's just get these connections off and have a look inside. Let me just turn on the overhead lights so you can see a bit better, because the lights are getting a bit dingy in here now. It's been a beautiful day, and the weekend's sort of supposed to be very nice, but of course no one's allowed out, so it's going to be a bit tricky to resist not going out. So let's have a bit of a closer look on this so you can see. Okay, so yeah, it's an 18 volt set, 2 9 volt PP9s in series, good old AF117 transistors, horrible Hunt's capacitors or Dallies. I'm not sure what they are, but whatever they are, they will need replacing. Got the sort of like the normal elliptical speaker. Inside looks in good condition. You can see that the on the back here, it's some of the Rexine started to lift where it looks like it's got damp. But I think I can probably get around that by sort of wetting it, letting it go soft, and then re-gluing it again. I'm not too worried about that. But as I say, I'm more interested in getting this radio working and then putting the insides into the decent radio I've got, and then just using this radio for spares. So I suppose the first thing we can do is we could power it up, see if there's any sign of life. For those following on at home, the serial number is 21168. So I don't know if that someone out there will probably be able to tell me the date it was made. Generally condition is in pretty good actually. It's a bit grubby, but of course it would be a bit grubby. There's a few sort of like scuff marks on the Rexine. There's a bit of scrape there, and where the greens come off. I think that's actually gone through the Rexine. But you could probably, if you wanted to keep this case, you could do something with that. The grill's a bit dented, but there's no nasty, really nasty sharp divots. It's just dents where if you take the grill off, you could flatten it out with like a roller or something like that. The buttons are in nice condition. The dial looks in pretty good condition as well. The brights are there, which is nice. So that's reassuring. So I suppose the next thing to do is we could put some power on it, see what it does, and then we'll try and work out what it needs. Good more or less guarantee it's going to need transistors having their shorts cleared, but for the time being I've just got to work out if this needs 2 9 volts or an 18 volt supply. What it can do, there can be a split 9 volt supply, so I think I need to look at the circuit diagram and see if I can actually just run this straight off 18 volts, or I have to supply 2 9 volts rails. So let me just check that, or maybe we should actually, what I'll do, we'll do that on the second part of the video. So this is the first part, the unboxing of the radio, having a look at it. Generally the electronic side of it looks pretty good, and we'll power it up in the next video and see what's happening. Would I really do that to you? Okay, I've got the supply connected up. Let's see if this thing works. Oh, it's doing something. Whistling. This is medium wave. I don't know where it's picking that noise up for. It's possibly the charger from the... yes, it is. It's the charger from the video camera. Get it in the orientation where it doesn't pretty insensitive, but it is working. That's the best. I've never had one that actually works as well as this for a long wave. I'm not sure where that noise is coming from. Is this a light? I think it's the charger. Let's disconnect the charger from the camera. Hopefully you won't go out. There we go. It's got 50 hertz buzz now from the Roban Verex power supply, which is normal.
The dangerous part is the test of your courage and skill at burglary. If you wish to enter the Harry Hooligan tribe.
Okay, well, it's working. Calibration is great on the scale. It's long wave, and this is radio 4, should be 1500 meters. Or actually sort of at 1400, so either the IF alignment's out slightly or the local oscillator's running the wrong frequency. We can do a quick and dirty check to check the local oscillator. If it goes a medium wave, then we just connect our signal generator up and just do a quick frequency search through the IF frequency range around 455 kilohertz. So we had a view on the signal generator, unfortunately, but I will tell you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to sweep through 455 kilohertz. Put quite a strong signal in, so you should be able to hear a modulation when I pass the IF. There we go. So our IF is running at about 470. That's probably about right, actually. Let's just checking the IF to see what it's. Yeah, 474. So IF is probably slightly out, but not a mile out. So that clearly shows that this radio is working fairly well. I think the next thing to do is I will strip all the guts out from the inside. The other thing to do, of course, with these radios, because it's a shortwave radio, it's got a telescopic aerial, and there are a brass aerial on these. And this one is as straight as a die. And these are rare, these aerials. You see that aerial? Totally straight. So there's nothing wrong with that aerial either. So let's get this radio out, and then we've got to try and track down the other generator, the other radio, and maybe swap the parts over. I think that's what I want to do. Oh, I found the red one. Yeah, believe it or not, it was actually where I thought it was, so that's good. This one's got a slight dink in the grille, but it's in much nicer condition, this chassis. And this one as well, believe it or not, aerial's perfect. So I think I'd like to transfer all the parts from this radio into the red one. The red one's the nicer colour. I'm not particularly keen on the green. Though the green's in, got a few scuff marks on it. I think the red one's just a more attractive looking radio. So the other thing is the handle on the red one, the leather's come away from the plastic. Now I'm not sure if I certainly won't be able to stitch it back on, but I might be able to sort of like glue it. I think that maybe the leather's stretched a bit, and you can see here. So maybe try and repair that as well. I know you can buy these aftermarket straps, but they do look a bit garish. The white plastic is a bit sort of like bold and needs to be toned down a bit. This is almost like an ebony sort of colour. It probably was brilliant white when it was new, but it's with age has gone a bit yellow. So the other option, of course, is buy one of those plastic straps and maybe leave it out in the sunlight and sort of like hope it goes a bit yellow. That might tone it down a bit. And it will tone down after a time anyway. It won't stay that brilliant white anyway. So I think get the guts out of this radio, strip out the bits I want. I think then the radio will basically go for scrap. The knobs, and everything on it are really good condition, so I could just transfer the parts over. I don't think it's worth holding onto this chassis for anything. If anyone wants any of the parts, you better give me a shout, because I'm no plans of keeping this. I need to try and maybe I probably will take the Roberts badge off, even though that seems to have got a bit of the Roberts missing. It's still better than the one on the red radio. Okay, so let's get the guts out of this radio and start the transfer. I'm just having a look at some of these capacitors, see what sort of state they are, what sort of value are. Then we've got an electromoldy here. It obviously needs replacing. You can see it's sort of like oozing out its innards inside. You can see that sort of like yellow smegma on the outside of the capacitor, and the same with this capacitor here and that one there. They're all the same. They're all leaking. Bear in mind these caps are 50 years old, so you can't really knock them for failing prematurely or anything. But these caps are notoriously unreliable, and I think that just Japanese capacitors, if you replace them with Japanese capacitors, they'll probably last longer than these capacitors ever do. So that will be the first thing to do, is change those capacitors. Obviously we need to clean up the volume pot. Zoom out a bit so you can see a bit easier. There's a volume pot down there. Clean that up with contact cleaner. This is the IF strip here that these radios use, and notoriously unreliable because they use the AF117s. Though for some reason this radio doesn't seem to suffer from many AF117 failures. There's another AF117 or AF11 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all the same, but they're not all the same. They're all the same. They all suffer the same problems. They suffer from tin whiskers. It's an AF115. Different frequency ranges and things like that. Some are more suited to the high frequencies than others. Some have better gain at low frequencies, so they select the transistor best for, obviously, for the gain and the frequency they're working at. Carbon resistors, really, I never do it, I must admit, but you should go through these carbon resistors. They're usually 10%. The silver band is 10% tolerance on them. These resistors here, you get a bit of close up. They should be checked just to make sure they're in spec still. Most of them are probably at their limit, maybe slightly above it, maybe slightly below it, but usually above it. They usually go high with age. Check those resistors. If you find one that's a mile out, especially high, I would replace it, but I tend not to bother with those, to be honest with you. I tend to just change all the electrolytics that are going to fail and are going to or are failing, like this one here, as I say, which has got all the yellow gunge oozing out of it. Change those. Basically, these transistors here in the audio stage, the 3-pin germaniums, AF11, AC128, AC176, those sort of versions of transistors, this style package, they are actually very reliable. And don't be fooled if you're new to this and you've been testing transistor radios from sort of like the 70s or 80s, silicon transistors, and you come up to that and say, they're all leaky. Well, that's normal for a germanium transistor. You'll always get a high leakage between collector and emitter. It might even show up on a diode test. If you go collector emitter, you might see sort of like 1.92 volts. That's probably okay for a germanium transistor. And the other way you can tell a germanium transistor is the full voltage drop is much lower than it is on silicon. You'll see 0.7, 0.6, 0.7, on germanium 0.2 or 0.3. That's normal. That's what you'd expect from a germanium transistor. And one of these modern peak transistor testers like Radio Cruncher uses should be able to differentiate between a germanium and a silicon and tell you that the transistor is actually okay. But if you're old school, you're using a multimeter or a DVM with a diode tester in it, expect to see a slightly different reading to what you would with a silicon transistor. So yeah, this is the IF section here, and this is, I think, a local oscillator, probably for the medium wave, and probably local oscillator for the long wave. Not too sure, maybe short wave, need to check that. And we've got these trimmer capacitors down here. These are basically adjustments for the high frequency ranges of the scale. I'm not going to bother with adjusting that until I've got all the capacitors replaced. But the miracle about this radio, and they're not all the same, these transistors are still working. And I've never really understood why some transistors still work at this age and some transistors are totally knackered. They're sort of so badly shorted. I don't know if it's something to do with the temperature they're exposed to, the humidity. I'm not sure, but this radio seems to be performing fairly well. It clearly needs capacitors replacing because the sound's a bit weak, but the sensitivity of the set seems to be pretty good. So the next thing to do is get these caps out and recap the whole thing. And you'll notice when I recap, the capacitors are going to be sort of like a quarter the size of these ones here. And these are axial capacitors, which the easy way to remember an axial capacitor looks like an axle. You've got the length of the capacitor and the wires carrying out each end, which are the wheels. So that's how I remember it, an axial capacitor. And a radial is where they come out one end. So These capacitors are going to be replaced with radials, because axial capacitors are very rare now. So we'll get the capacitor out, replace those. There's one back there I didn't spot actually, there's another one there. Get those caps changed. We'll test them on the ECR, LCR meter and check them for resistance and things like that. But I expect these capacitors to be performing pretty badly by now. So let's get the caps out, get them replaced, and we'll do some measurements and see how the radio performs. Okay, this is Alco mold, TCC Alco mold, 100 microfarad. Okay, so we put it on the LCR meter, and it's showing up as 31 picofarads, and the ECR and the dissipation factor is all over the place, so it's obviously hasn't got a clue what it is. That capacitor is absolutely knackered. It's basically a totally open circuit. All the electrolytes leaked out of it, and it's not even registering anything. So okay, that cap's knackered. Let's put another capacitor in there and move on to the next capacitor. I pulled the last capacitor here, which was a 2 microfarad, 16 volts I think it was, and it looked really crusty. It was sort of like corroded on the side of the IF can. I took the capacitor out and thinking that was going to be absolutely had it. Just perfectly okay actually. The ESR is a bit high, because it's 2 microfarad at such a low voltage. I'm going to see if I can find a ceramic that will fit that. That'll be better, more reliable, and won't ever need replacing again. Should this radio make another 30-40 years, the capacitor will always be good. So that's a collection of capacitors we've got so far. Some of them are actually not good, but some of them are passable. This one here, this TCC electromold is good. I don't understand why they did this with that connection there on the top is the negative, so the red is the positive, but these black ones, the case is the negative and that's the positive. I don't know why they did that, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, probably to how it fits the circuit board. You select the capacitor for the orientation of on the board, I suppose. But those caps are basically knackered really, and no good. I can't see a date code on them. Well, they probably use a date code on them, but I can't decipher for it. But it's I would say they were sort of 60s, maybe early mid 60s. I don't know. So yeah, let's get that capacitor changed, and then we'll power it up and see what it sounds like. Right, I've got the caps back in it. Rewired it all back up. Let's give this a run, see if this thing actually works. It'd be nice if it did, because it'd be the first Roberts R500 I've ever heard work, believe it or not. I had no luck at all with my previous two. So let's try it, power it up. I've recapped it. All the electrics are done. Ooh. Pot's noisy. That's not working. It's working a shortwave.
That's what you got to do now. Do what you got to do.
Cheers for that, guys.
I don't know.
Well, it's working, clearly working. That interference is actually because I'm running off the row-bound power supplies. The Varexes, there's two Varexes I'm using in series. Was the 32, which is fully linear power supply. It's pretty electrically quiet, they're very good. But the 65 is a sort of semi-switching power supply. What it does is I'm going off subject a bit. The capacitor is for the output is kept topped up by a thyristor controlled circuit, and it just prevents the header volts getting too high. So it's sort of semi-linear, sort of switch mode, and that's what you can hear. Sometimes you can hear a zhunk, 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 and that's the thyristor firing to charge the capacitor up.
Could you repeat them? But from Global's newsroom, it's
okay, it's clearly working. Working fairly well actually. It needs the pots cleaning and the switches cleaning. I think I'm just going to check again now it's been recapped, just see if the IF alignment's shifted at all. It should be exactly the same as it was before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sweep the IF, and we should hear a peak volume at, I think it's 470. I'll check that quickly. Check our IF is 470. And if it's a mile out, I'll adjust it. If it's not a mile out, I'm going to leave it well alone, because I think it's not that critical that the IF frequency is spot on alignment, but it is critical that if it's designed to be peaked IF, it's peaked as well as you can get it. So I'm going to just check the IF alignment, have a look on the internet, find the R500 manual, and we'll just do a quick sweep, see what we get back. Okay, the set is indeed an IF of 470 kilohertz. So what I'm going to do is we'll turn on the signal generator. For those who don't know, there's a loop aerial underneath the bench, nailed to the back of the bench. It's an old valve radio loop antenna I screwed to the bottom of the bench, and it works really well for injecting, you know, into an IF and things like that. It's quite useful for alignment when you just need to close couple something. So I'm just going to, you can see the frequency here. Let's scan for our 470. Put modulation on. There we go. Volume pot's very noisy. So it's pretty good, isn't it? Let's turn the power down a bit. Turn the volume up a bit.
Hospital
About 472 kilohertz, so that's pretty good alignment. So I think I'm quite happy with that. I think the next step will be is to clean the volume control up, clean the switches up, and then we might just do an RF alignment just to try and bring a bit more in on medium wave. There is this issue with the long wave. If I show you here again, radio falls off frequency. It should be at 1500 kilohertz, but that's an easy enough tweak. And that's, I don't think the IF alignment being out by 2 kilohertz is enough to actually affect that, so, or not to that extent anyway. So let's let's give the contacts a clean, and we'll put it back in the box. Right, it also looks like there's I don't know, someone's had this apart and put the pointer back on wrong. It certainly doesn't look right. Roden Schwartz is generating 1500 kilohertz. We should be around 200 meters. And it's not, you see, it's gone right off the end of the scale. You see that? You see that on the end of the scale? It's run off the end of the scale. Now, it could be the adjustment on the local oscillator, but also the medium wave is out of alignment as well. So what I think it is, the leads just come off the battery. Well, I think it is someone's had this apart and put the dialer point back on. Now, because it's unlikely that the long wave and the medium wave oscillators are running at the wrong frequency. Because there's a trimming capacitor to trim both. I think the pointer's been put on wrong. So let's get the front knobs off it and get the front panel off. We can give it a gentle clean as well then. Yes, they have. Those screws are nice and loose. That's a sure sign that someone's had this apart at some point to repair it or do something with it. I don't know what. Yeah, the screws are loose, which is nice. You're not forcing the screws, and you can see how loose that is. The front panel came off nice and easily. So there should be a mark somewhere on these, and I couldn't see anything in the manual about an alignment mark, but they usually have something so you can start and get the pointer in the right position. So I wonder if someone's restrung this at some point. It's possible, isn't it? So let's get this alignment a bit better than it was, and then we'll give it another go and see what the scale calibration looks like. Yeah, this is loose. You see where it is now? It was slid right the way down there. It's very loose to slide. It just slides along. See, so that's good. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to daub a couple of bits of. I'll probably use a bit of varnish or Humasil, which is a hermetical protection used for electronics, just to give it a bit more grip so it doesn't slide along again. Clean these front panels up. Check the screws are everything's all tight for the capacitors, which they're not. You see the screws are loose. They often come loose on these, on all of the Roberts radios. Tighten those up. Very loose, that one. Okay, so clean it up and then get the top panel back on, the top perspex on.